Hello and welcome to the wrap. This is episode number 48, and it is Thursday, June 15th, 2023. And this is a show wrapping up all things Zwift from the last week, racing events, tech, fashion, you name it. And it is also a podcast. We are live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you want to download the podcast, come over to zwiftcommunitylive.com. You can also sign up over there for updates and newsletters about all things Zwift Community Live, or you can go ahead and search the Wrap and Zwift anywhere that you do download your podcast, and you'll be able to get that pretty easily. Coming up today on the Wrap, well, I'm Nathan Guerra, and that's Anna Russel next to me. She's over in New Zealand. I'm somewhere in the U.S. of Wisconsin, and it's getting hot out here. I think it's still winter over in New Zealand. But today on the wrap, we're going to be talking about the new Repack Rush that just launched. Some gamified Mario Kart-ish like it seems like Zwifting going on. There's also a new Zwift controller, the Zwift Play, that just launched yesterday, actually. We'll be continuing a little bit of discussion about Indivelo and Zwift and what the conversation has been in the community. We'll also be chatting about the upcoming IOC, the Olympic exhibition event, and what it means for esports. Our guest today is Christopher Schwenker. He is the founder of the Zcommunique and Zcommunique. I always get that one wrong completely. And he is also a freelance writer who's been picked up with a lot of things when it comes to esports. He's kind of like the go-to, it seems like, in this space when it comes to cycling, esports, and writing of articles. So really great to have him on here and get his take on all things esports in the cycling space right now. But as usual, and what is the garage pick? We've got the jersey pick of the week is going to be the next esports in real life kit. And interestingly enough, the Sturzo, which is a steering device, is the
might be a
garage pick.
an
No, I think
RIP.
it's great. I think it's a great
Rest
one,
in
though.
peace, Sturzo. Yeah.
Maybe. So, all right, everybody. Also, let us know what you think about everything in chat, as we can see the chats. It is a live show, so sorry to those hanging out in the podcast. Go comment on something on our socials if you listen to this afterwards, if you want some direct interaction. But we will be watching the chats across all the platforms we are live on. But as usual, what have we been up to for the last week in relation to the cycling and Zwifty space? Anna, you want to go first?
What have I been doing? It was actually my son's birthday over the weekend, and so I felt like I was just like knee deep in birthday parties and 8 boys over doing ninja fighting and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I went for a run. Nothing like, I've got to say, like nothing too exciting or crazy. Yeah, that's about it, to be fair.
You event-oriented
like,
person? Like if you were on the podcast last week, her event got taken away from her, Anna. And so like, not taken away, but like, I think like, are you just,
I guess,
you have
like,
to be aiming at something? So you're like,
Oh,
well, whatever. No? Okay.
No, not at all. But I don't know how interested podcast listeners would be in like, yeah, I had a great birthday party and we had some awesome family time, and I could go on all the,
Well,
I guess
no, I
a
mean,
lot
like,
of what I've been
that,
doing.
does that mean that you're, what I'm getting at is the event-oriented thing when I mean, like, competition-wise. Like, that's why there's nothing going on in your life, Zwifty, exercise, pushing yourself thing. That's kind of like, oh, I'm going to break a little bit right now.
Well, I think in general, the reason for the not doing the event, this like hernia thing, I'm probably not going to be like, hey, I went on Zwift for like 5 hours and I went for this like 2-hour trail run. So I would say everything's a little bit more low key at the moment until I get that sorted. So that would be it. So yeah, it hasn't been a boring week. It's been a good, like, well-rounded week. I've been getting a lot more like work done, which has been good. So yeah, that's me. But sorry, team, not like any crazy athletic endeavors.
Gotcha. Right on. Well, for me, what I've been up to, we took a week. We were going to go to the Epic Fest in the Northwoods, Wisconsin, which is a really cool charity/race event. It has some big prize money too. And like, looking at the results on, like, in those situations where you look at the results and you like kick yourself a little bit, like, oh, why didn't I go? But it just wasn't in the cards for the family and like all the responsibilities and stuff that's happening in life right now. So looking forward to this weekend instead for the next race event on the mountain bike. But instead, I just trained like crazy. I found that I haven't employed in my training steady state. Like I used to almost kind of be like anti-steady state. I used to be like base. I used to be very polarized in my training and in my coaching, like extremely polarized. Like it's base or we're working on these zones in 4 through 7. And that it's like those are the two places, like base recovery and these exercise systems over here. And like I've found in the last year that like I don't know that SST has just gotten so many gains for me as this other base space that I've been going after that like I've kind of added that to my base arsenal. And it just seems like you can do that so often to get huge gains and not invest as much time necessarily. And also that your ability to do more time goes up massively. It seems like to me, at least, when you do these SST rides in a larger and larger capacity. Now, the funny thing is that nothing's for free, right? And like, yes, that you get big gains out of this and everything, but they are probably the thing that's harder about a big base ride is the mental aspect of like the long ride at the same power. But it's not like it doesn't force you into quite as much of a concentrated suffering. It's like this longer effort of suffering. Whereas like these limits rides at SST for like 1.5 to 2 hours, I look at them like they're like a full on race effort to make it happen. But the funny thing is they don't stress you as much once you kind of get used to them and you can keep on pressing that envelope, maybe not day after day, but pretty close to that. It's really interesting how they work. So anyways, that's what I've been doing. A lot of SST and then resting a little bit and doing like crazy intervals. Yesterday I went to like, and it's mostly been on Zwift, which is interesting. I almost never do the SST stuff outside. I almost always do them on Zwift. And I found that with ERG, and this is a discussion actually I've seen in chat, that there's some sort of like anti-ERG movement going on in the world. Do you know about this?
Oh.
There's anti-erg movement going on.
Oh my gosh. This is going to lead me on to my renty chat.
Go! I want to hear it.
No, it's not about erg mode. Tell me what the anti-erg, what are they anti-erg though?
I don't know. There's like someone talking about like, well, Sweets brought it up in chat and a few others about there's people saying that you shouldn't use erg because it's not as real. I feel like it's the gravel crowd, you know? No, like it's not as real. Take an adventure in your power. like they're taking the idea of like, I'm just kidding, kind of just kidding. But it's like, no. It's like, come on, guys. Like the erg forces upon you a certain reality. If you can't do it, it's like you got a trainer. Like a person, like a trainer, they're like saying, do it. You have to do it. And then it's like you do it or you don't. And so I think, anyways, man. Huge gains from
Do I launch now? Oh my gosh. Is that a segue?
I don't know.
I feel like I need to go. I'll go, Nathan.
What are we going about? I don't even know what she's talking about.
This is, I warned you last night. I was like, I don't often rant, but oh man. Okay. And that has like sparked it again. Why are people now, and I'm just meaning people in general, so wider than all of this, why is it like you're in this camp or you're in this camp and neither the two shall meet? You're either into erg mode or you're not into erg mode, and you're us or them, and then it really frustrates me. So last week on the show, I love you sitting back and like, okay, here we go. Last week on the show, we talked about Indivelo, which got released.
Well, we're segueing. We're getting off erg because Nathan's way too. Yeah, that's what I did.
We're segueing into this.
Okay, sounds good.
So what's frustrating is we had the show last week. We talked about Indivelo. I've been having a lot of fun racing there. I've had some great races on there this week. And I've been on Zwift trying out the new steering area, and I've had heaps of fun on there too. Now, what is frustrating me is, for me, I don't know what it is. Like I just see the two as like two different offerings, right? And I'm having a lot of fun in both. And that's about the depth of my thinking on that goes. The number of people who have messaged me and saying, oh, are you switching now? Are you still going to be friends with me if I stay on Zwift? I'm like, honestly, it was a lot of messages. And I was like, guys, like, what the heck is going on? Like, I just do not understand this mentality at all. And I'm not like, I can see it on both sides. Like I can see in like this Indivelo Discord, like it's like all these haters of Zwift have like found their little spot to hate on Zwift. I'm like, oh, I'm like mute that channel. Like it's just, I'm not on Indivelo because I hate Zwift. And if I go Zwift, it's not because I hate Indivelo. They're just two different things offering something new and for you to try. And I really, really don't understand this mentality in human nature. And I look at it as I'm like, guys, these are two companies. Like, I am loyal to people. Like, I am friends with people. I'm not friends with a company. Like, they are offering me something as a customer. Like, I'm not sitting there, like, I'm not one of those people who's like, you use an Android, oh my God, I hate you, like iPhone all the way. I'm like, it's a phone. Like, I just don't care that much. Like, oh my gosh. And I think like if people can just get off that mentality and just go enjoy things and not be in this funny zone and get angry at everything, I would just really, really appreciate it. And that's my rant. That is rant over. So there we go. I don't usually like ranting, but man, I did not like those messages I was getting.
Yeah, I can. So okay, there was a really great the Disney Plus and the HBO thing you did in pre-productions. So you have subscriptions to both. You said right? Like,
yeah. So this is
a great example.
So I subscribe to Indivelo and I subscribe to Zwift. Now, actually, interestingly, I cancelled Strava, so that was my like out. So
okay, so where does that fit? We have is that your like Amazon Plus, like or something? Like,
maybe.
So I still have Disney Plus and I have HBO, but I'm getting rid of my Amazon. Like
exactly. So, but that is probably a good point. So I looked at it, I was like, what's the analogy I can give? I'm like, okay, I have Disney Plus, I pay for that, and I pay for HBO, and they offer me two different things. Disney Plus is because I love Star Wars. I love Mandalorian. I love all the Star Wars movies. I love my kids watch The Young Jedis. And there's a few Disney Plus things they watch. I love HBO because I like watching, is it Barry, that like show on there, and like, I don't know, Handmaid's Tale when that comes out, or Game of Thrones, like House of the Dragon. I like all that stuff. So I guess you'd call one the kind of edgy, adult stuff, and the other one is like the fun Star Wars stuff.
Zwift? So then Zwift is Disney and Indivelo is HBO, like adults only or something.
yeah, there we go. Zwift did the game controller, so they're definitely in the Disney Plus. But I think like I don't look at them and go, oh well, I've got to pigeonhole myself into edgy adult shows, or I've got, well, I can only be Star Wars. Like, I like different things, and different things give you like different enjoyment. And so I went on Indivelo and I had an awesome race experience and it was fantastic. And then last night I went in on Repack Rush with my kids and tried that out, and that was awesome and that was fantastic. And I don't want to feel like, I actually had this mental process where I put a reel up of my kids talking about Repack Rush, which we can talk about later when my rant is over. And they loved it and it was super enjoyable. I was like, oh, I'll put this reel up. I was like, oh no, am I going to get anyone from the Indivelo crowd being like, you've gone to the darks? Like, I was like, man, and I don't want to think that. Just let me enjoy two things that are offering me great things.
With us or against us, I can understand. So I do want to like throw a little bit of a bone, and not that I agree or anything like necessarily with that, but I think the communication. So there's an argument that all things are communication and all things are relationship, but we go all philosophical about that. But then on the other side of it, like there's the so on the whole like who you're friends with and what are you interacting with. Well, that's all like an aside of it, but like you're right 100% there as far as the sub thing goes, and like where you go for what you're gonna do. Totally awesome, different. I agree 100%. There's different offerings. The other side of it is like you have a new platform that needs momentum, and it's like, come on, you have like a group that sees something cool and they want to see it succeed, and so then they're like, I thought you were with us to make this succeed, and it's not going to succeed if you don't come with it. You know what I mean? And so then that motivation wants it to have that. But anyways, like things will succeed if they do well, if they create a good product. That's on the product. It's not on me. If I don't want to do something, like I'm not going to use a product because of my allegiance to like these people or something. Like, you know, what the heck? So anyways. Unless we get all weird and political in American politics right now, but we're not going to do that.
I feel and I feel like
that shouldn't be in this space. That's not in this space, luckily, right now at all. So let's just stay away from that, please. Yeah. Like 100%. Like we don't need that.
But we won't do that. But I do find it interesting you said that, Nathan, because I was like, oh, is this like, but we're definitely not expanding on this, but it definitely was like, is this what it feels like living in America sometimes? So anyway, like I was like, oh, okay, is that?
I don't know if it's just America. I think it sounds like New Zealand's just its own little thing right now because I don't know if it's just America. Anyways, all right, we're gonna keep on going. Okay. That's a whole nother topic. That's a different podcast. That's a whole different podcast.
There we go. Yeah. And there's lots of podcasts that cover that. You go find those ones.
Yeah.
But, okay.
100%.
Let's have a quick chat about this game controller before
which
I know
game
Chris
controller?
will have some
There's
thoughts
a game
on
controller?
It too.
I don't know what you're
is there?
What's
well, I don't have one. But I actually just bought one.
What is that thing?
It's quite cool. Like, yeah, I do like that picture. Look how neat the
so explain the picture for the
aerial shot. Yeah, it's the aerial shot of the handlebars with the game controller. It just fits really snugly on the drop bars. Now I have bought one. I bought one pretty much as soon as it got released, and it's being sent to a friend in the US so that they can send it to me here in New Zealand because I can't get them. But I do really like the ergonomical design of that. Like, I just think that is awesome. I mean, Nathan, you've got one. I mean, I assume with like the silicone wraparounds that it just fits super snug to those drops.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, they do actually. Like, to initially put them on, it wasn't difficult, but you do have to really yank a little bit, and that's a good thing because they do not slide at all. Like, I have had zero movement on the plays. Actually, I have the box here, but they're not actually. They're on my bike, and my bike is behind the green screen behind me. So yeah, but they're pretty sweet. Been testing them for a while, and obviously we had like some cool promo stuff for it and everything. Gabby put together a really cool unboxing. Llama did his awesome video, DC Rainmaker as well, I've seen, and then Zwift Insider put out a great article, so you guys can go check all of those out. But Zwift plays. My initial interaction with them, the funniest thing is like, so I'm going to show a little bit here real quickly of like the Repack Rush in a second as we go ahead and talk about that, and that'll also be alongside of the game controllers, and my interactions with them. But what was really funny is we did a live stream yesterday, and I didn't realize how much I liked the teleport feature once I had the plays, because the plays make the menu like 2 clicks, and not me pushing up arrow on the keyboard and grabbing my mouse and messing around or whatever. Like, it's like click, click. And at first, when I first got on the plays, I wasn't sure that I liked. See, I'm such a gamer. Oh my gosh. So like,
I was gonna say,
I'm so mouse and keyboard oriented. I'm so anti-controller because of my gaming in first-person shooters that like, I can't stand that people use aimbots with controllers. And I think that actually creeped into my interactions with the plays, which is so weird because I was like, oh, I don't want to be pushing buttons like all these controller users because they're such cheaters. But anyways, like, which everybody who's a cyclist that doesn't play FPS games be like, what the heck is Nathan talking about? It's all like, but essentially think like Z-Power Rider in your A event, and they shouldn't be there, and it's messing up the whole event. Good for you. You want to play the game, and you get some assistance, and you're getting a workout, but get the heck out of the competitive space. That's the controller versus mouse and keyboard space right now in first-person shooters. But, like, so I think I had that, and then I started interacting with the controllers and doing the teleport, and I was like, So we did this one moment where we got done with Repack Rush and we're leaving Repack Rush. And I was like, hey, we want to get back in really quick. You know what? We could teleport to a pacer bot, a robo pacer that's near it maybe. And that'll get us quicker back to the Repack Rush. I was like, let's see if we can find it. And sure enough, Jeannie was at the top of the Titans Grove climb. And the funny thing is we were going to show this cool thing about once you go through Repack Rush once, you can actually roll right in. So it stops you the first time and says, here's how you play Repack Rush and like da-da-da-da-da. Yep. And like, but if you don't have that, you can roll straight in with speed, like full gas. And so like we're going for like, we're all competitive with each other and whatever. And so I go to Jeannie quick. I teleport to the Jeannie Robo Pacer. And we're going downhill off of the Titan. We're doing like 57 kilometers per hour or something. And I was like, turn left. And we hit the button on the controller quick. Don't have to mess with anything. It was so seamless. And then we're just playing. And you know when something solves a problem that you don't even know the problem exists anymore? Yeah. That's what it felt like. It felt like suddenly I'm interacting with the game in a seamless way. And next thing you know, I'm in this, we're flying at 60, whatever, I don't know, we were doing 50K or something into Repack Rush. And then I noticed that you go so freaking fast sometimes that you can't hit all the, I don't know, what are we calling all these things? I just want to call them Mario Kart pieces. But we got to like have names for the blue pad and the timer thing and the red pad.
Well, I mean, we could have my sons, go check out my Instagram, because I was like, the first time I do this, and this was the point I wanted to make with this, is like, so I don't have the game controller, so I was still on the old school Sturzo, which, by the way, I'm so glad there's a game controller coming to me, because I don't know if this is the size of my bike frame or what, but when I turn, or if I'm like too aggressively turning, but the front wheel, but the back of the front wheel, when I turn, hits my shoe when I'm pedaling.
Ooh,
so I'm constantly,
yeah, you're on like a tri-bike or something. Like it has a weird,
it's
a weird
my
angle.
roadie. Oh, but there'll be a weird angle because it's a interesting geometrically designed bike. It's not UCI legal. So when I turn the wheel, my foot hits it, and it really is annoying. So the game controller is going to be like unreal. But I wanted to watch it with my kids. So I put my younger daughter to bed, and then I brought the two boys down, and I said, here's the microphone. All I want you to do is talk about what I'm doing. Like, so I went and did Repack Rush. Honestly, like, this is where I was like I liked Repack Rush. It's cool. I'm not like, oh my God, yes, gaming, like this is the best thing ever. But yeah, my boys, they're watching it. So they're 6 and 4, right? Mom, go for the blue ramp. Go, it'll make you faster. No, don't do the red one, Mom. It's like lava. It slows you down. No, Mom. Yes, you've got 7 green things. Oh, there.
Yeah, so I don't know if I have the sound on here, but let me see if I can get some.
Yeah, so no, they were talking through that whole thing, and so they loved it. So there we go.
Do not touch the red ones, Mom. You're so good. Hey, what do the blue things do?
Oh.
Yeah, they love it. Obviously.
Speed. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, they're into it. They're so into it.
Yeah, so they watched me do the whole thing.
Blue one.
And the further immediately picked up, like, blue one makes you faster, red one makes you slower. Counting all the green ones, and then as soon as I finished, I want to turn, can I go on it? I was like, oh, this is like,
oh boy, that's cool. Yeah. Like, you know, at least it's not one of these then, right? Like,
well, yeah. And so like
it's a game that they're getting a workout in, and they're doing that and not playing on the phone.
Exactly. And I look at what I'm trying to do with like this youth. We've got youth esport hubs set up around the country. We're trying to create this youth competition. And I'm not going to lie, the traction to get people on there is really hard. And I look at what the events they want, and they want short events, like 10K with every single power up that you can have. So we do like 1 lap of London Classic, but every banner has the whole suite of power-ups. Like, so the kids want more of this gamification. And I just look and I'm like, this is, I mean, it's not like necessarily for me. I'd be more like, how can I use this in racing? How can I use the steering? How can I use steering to better do a TTT position? But my kids are like, oh my God, give me more of Repack Rush. Like, I want to get on there and give it a try. So I'll probably put it up of them giving it a try because I can kind of try and figure it out. But yeah, the only thing with the game controllers is I want to be able to put it on their little bike or something, but they have flat handlebars. But yeah, I thought, that's cool. Like, I like
that is one of the feedbacks.
Like
so on the other side of it, like in the community, so okay, there's one feedback that I'm kind of like, this isn't us them space. It feels like this is that kind of little bit getting a little black and white, like controllers are not but at the same time, I feel like my experience, as well as what I'm seeing, the uptake in the community and how like people are like, I want to get on these right away and all that kind of stuff. And like just how it makes things kind of seamless. This prejudice, and I want to use that word, this prejudging of it that is coming out as like because the gamification word seems almost like a trigger word to certain groups within the cycling community now, where it's like, I don't think you remember Princess Bride? I don't know if that means what you think it means. Like, I'm not sure if inconceivable. I feel like that word gamification is the same word as inconceivable was in Princess Bride. And the guy, the sword fighter guy, you guys know the scene? You know what I'm talking about? And he looks over at the guy that's saying inconceivable over and 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 over again. Yeah. And eventually he looks at him and goes, I don't think that, Princess Bride, I don't think that means what you think that means. Like, and that's kind of where I'm at this point with the guys who, with the controllers and the gamification, and like, they just gotta, it feels like there's this thing stuck and like this moan that is just old guard that doesn't get what's happening here. Like, where I'm like, I can just interact with the game easier. And sure, there's a little mode that you might not play, but fine, don't go play it. Like, it's a great way to interact with the game. Like, so anyways, there's that, because we've seen that. I've seen some pretty, on the Zwift Insider article, it was like,
I saw that
people who are really into it were like, really like, oh, cool. And I bought one right away and da-da-da-da-da. And then there was all this like, I don't know, man. Like, I know you ride a Peugeot probably still, and cool, go ride it. Like, wow.
Yeah, I think I guess you find that everywhere, right? You had that last week with the tubes and tubeless kind of discussion. And maybe I feel like I kind of float in this area of like, I'll just try everything. Like, I don't feel super tied to anything. And like, I immediately got the game controller because I was like, I see the value just for that, like you said, the ease of game experience, like being able to click up, being able to do that, not use my mouse so much. Like, just having it all there at the handlebars seems so seamless to me. And I see that, I don't know where Zwift would go with it, but I would imagine the best place they could go is that it just gets rolled up into the Zwift Hub purchase. Like, I think anyone who purchases a Zwift Hub, you should be sent the controllers as well. Like, it should
be add on or something, or it's a part of it completely.
I think it should just be a part. Like, I think that it should be like, you're on Zwift, here's your whole ecosystem. Like, hook up these controllers, that's how you get everywhere, and here's your hub, and that's how you get your power output, and make it seamless. Because I think what would be good is, because I'd just like to see everybody on kind of steering, because I think where there'll be a little bit of complaining, I think, is because all races have it enabled now, is that there's advantages to steering. And also, like, I was just riding around the other week and I was like, man, why am I not getting on this guy's draft? I just want to ride easy. Why can't I get on this draft? And then I looked, I was like, oh, he's got steering. So he was kind of steering into a different part. And I was like, oh, I can't like draft off him. And so I was like, oh, I think it'd just be great if it's like
that is a topic. Like, is there segregation in the community just around functionality, where like things are going to get difficult across functionality, where like some are steering and some aren't, and like people who don't have the steering device just can't interact with those who do have a steering device as well. So that's definitely something there. Having an opportunity perhaps to open up steering in other more in ways that are just more difficult to do. You know what I mean? Like it's not on your handlebars, but I guess like you could have a situation where you could use a keyboard or some other input that's really, you know what I mean, that has a lot of friction around it. It's not as easy. That would make it so that you don't have that segregation. Like if you want to steer, fine, you can, but you have to use who knows what. You know what I mean? And it's like a lower end. You know what I mean? Because we have that across the gaming platforms, right? Like if I'm using my Razer keyboard with like, you know, mechanical buttons and a Razer Death Adder Elite mouse that's got super precision versus I'm using my wireless Microsoft battery operated keyboard that's like this thin and is you know, those are really and then like a wireless junky mouse, I'm not even going to be able to be in the same room like as somebody else that's playing a game with me. And so, but you could still interact at least and kind of think you're playing the game. You know what I mean? Like, so just be more difficult, or at least it'd be more difficult. So you could have that situation.
Yeah, I think, I think I look at the people who, like my parents, who I set up with their, you know, their Wahoo Snap. I went and got them an old PC. I set it up on it was if I wasn't doing that for them, like, man, their experience would literally be so terrible. Like, it would be horrible what they were doing on there. Like, they were using their phone. They didn't really know what to do, you know. So, but if they got sent, from what I can see with like the hubs, it seems very like easy. And from what I've seen with like unboxing of game controls, it seems very easy. So I was like, this would be, like my parents, just buy this one package. It gets sent to you. It's super easy to set up and then it's done. Like, I think I saw a lot of value there. Like, I think that hopefully, and you can see that with a little bit of like, it had like the Amazon influence of that co-CEO kind of all over it, right? Of that ease of purchase, delivery, and setup is sort of coming to Zwift, which I quite like.
Yeah, and that's a good point across also like who the general Zwifter is too. One of the things that up front, I think in the media stuff around this was, and the research up front was, there actually was a picture in one of the first presentations I said that said, this is your usual Zwift setup. And like across the board, it was a person really far away from their screen and really far away from being able to interact with anything and their bike. Like, and that was it. Like, and they had no way, and any way to interact in any way, they had to get a table or have a wireless keyboard right here. Like, there was all these solutions. And this is just Zwift trying to create a solution and adding cool things. Like, it's like, hey, we're focusing so much on the steering, whereas like this is more about answering a problem for your everyday Zwifter, because there's an Apple TV on the screen. There's a whatever it is that's far away from them that they need to interact with.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Sweet's come in with a really good point in the chat. And I kind of agree. And I think this is, you know, comes back to that, what I was talking about, the Indivelo and Zwift thing. Like, one of the points that was made was like, I really enjoy Indivelo because I have a direct line to George who has set it up, and I feel like changes can be made immediately. I wasn't there at the beginning, but I assume Zwift was the same at the beginning. And I think what we're seeing now is like, this is a bigger company who has got big goals, and the big goals are not necessarily for the hardcore racing community. So I think there's just that acceptance that, steering probably, and these game controllers is probably going to be awesome for that, I don't know, 80 to 90% of people who are on Zwift for an enjoyable fitness experience. And maybe this is just a little bit of a teething process for us kind of like hardcores to kind of see and move to where the platform is going a little bit. You know, it is going to a bit more of a mass market.
Yeah. We're about to talk about IOC. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Zwift like to do everything sometimes, but it has caused maybe not. So we'll see about that. Well, real quickly here, we'll jump over to a little bit more Repack Rush, and then we're going to jump in with our guest in the chatter about the IOC. But if you haven't seen Repack Rush, here's a quick little look with me and Gabby were actually yesterday competing against each other, and I said, okay, let's go. I had so much fun doing this, actually.
Over there?
So this is Repack Rush. If you haven't seen it yet, this is a stream I did yesterday with it. Grabbing little timers. There's little blue. So the timers will decrease your time at the end of the whole section. So as you can see, I'm getting 0.2 seconds of bonus time, but that doesn't actually happen until the end. You can see at the top the estimated time of arrival. The little red guys there. The red. What are we calling those pads? The red pads?
Well, my kids called them lava. I'm just keeping with that. I'm calling
I
them
don't
lava.
go in the lava. Oh my gosh, Milo's
lava.
thing. Yeah, Milo's little soundbite. That sounds amazing. Don't go in the lava. Right on. Then you got blue pads that speed you up. Essentially, I
call them boost pads.
Boost pads. There you go. Boost pads and lava pads. I like it. We'll go with that. And there's actually some tips and tricks about this. One thing that came up in some of the reviews from some of the, I think it was in one of the articles that got released in the media, but GP Llama and Eric actually were in a chat with me about this, and it was like, it pulls you back to the middle, like it's pulling you back to the middle a lot, and some complaints about the steering. This is gamification, and like in the same way that if I'm in Apex and I need to learn how to slide, and there's a way that you slide in Apex that is most optimal for getting the most speed and being able to shoot while I slide, you might have to learn how to steer in a way that isn't what you were necessarily expecting. Now, if it totally is like malfunctional, I get that. But I mean, I figured while I was like, so there's lots of little tips and tricks for getting the best time you could possibly get. And there's going to be speed runs, I think, eventually. If people get into this enough, they'll be like, here's how you do this as
question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I couldn't quite see it on the video. I could see it on the side. Can you, do you see Gabby, or are you guys in totally different?
No, we're in the same one. No, we're in the same one.
So,
yeah.
So because this is what I was excited about.
Draft
I'm going to get my kids on there tonight, and we'll do it together side by side. Because can you grab someone else's green timer? Can you
I think the timers are. The timers are independent, though. I think the timers are independent.
I was going to say, imagine. So this is the first thing I thought that I was like, this would be cool. Is
like
you
a
got
verse
WTL
mode
race that goes into Titans. And the race is in Titans, but part of the race is you jump on, and if you get there first, you can start getting heaps of the tokens, and then you can mop them all up. And if you get it, they're not there for the person behind you, so they've got to get a boost mode and try and get past you to get the ones that are ahead of you. And I was like, and then you come back into Zwift and keep going with your regular Zwift race. I was like, oh my gosh. Or you decide which team members had
such a cool idea. So in the middle of a race, they add this part, or little, you enter Repack, and then Repack actually is a part of the whole race. And then at the end of the whole race, you get the bonus. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So then you're race into that. And then you can have 3 sections like that instead of just, because, okay, let's be honest, the dirt section of Zwift right now, would be so cool if they added, right? You could do it in the dirt section, or make it a little add-on to the volcano, or,
And then you can have the team tactics.
Now we're really making those people who are against, we're triggering all the gamer trigger trauma people. People have trauma from gamification here. I don't know.
But then, if you've got a teammate, so I think sorry, Jen, but I'll use your example. So say Jen in our team doesn't want to do the gamification. You just go, okay, all you've got to do is aim for every blue boost pad in there and just get ahead and get out of there as quick as you can. And you'll be at the front of the race when we come out of here. Whereas we'll go all
versus timers. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Be amazing. And then you've got a bit of the mix of I think it'd be awesome. WTRL, chuck that into a race. I mean, the Twitterverse will explode with people who don't like it, but I think it'd be a cool thing to try.
It don't matter if you don't like it, if people are enjoying it, man. Because yesterday I hit that moment where if you look at the bottom of here, let me just look at the graph real quickly. I'll show the graph. Okay? I didn't, look at that graph at the bottom. I didn't even notice. I was just having fun and competing and messing up, and you can hear me oh no, this is happening, and okay.
I'm a bike fatigued.
Yeah, and I'm trying to handle the bike fatigued, and I get done, and look how red my graph is, and I'm just going for it in a competitive way right now. So I mean, that, I mean, it doesn't matter if it works, it works, and you're having fun doing it. Like, yeah. So those ideas
cool.
are actually really awesome. Actually, I can actually see Christopher Schwenker in chat. Like, I don't even know. I don't want to come in here. Like, this is such a great discussion. Like, just leave this alone. Now.
Well, I think should we bring in Chris now? Because I think also this does lead into a discussion of, is this more what an Olympic esport event could look like? Has this moved into a different future for Zwift? Hello,
let me welcome. Yeah. Christopher Schwenker, thanks a lot. Yeah, a lot of people know Chris, but if you're new to the program, new to the podcast, Christopher Schwenker from Zcommunique. Yeah, Zcommunique. Am I doing that right?
You've so spelt that wrong as well.
That might be the first. That might be the first time that you pronounced it correctly. I'm very proud of you. I also,
Zcommunique.
I appreciate the humble introduction earlier and the invitation also, because I didn't think Anna was my friend anymore.
What? Oh, I know.
Wait, is there like drama? What's going on here? Oh my gosh, we've got beef.
She's them and not us.
Oh, God.
Exactly. Oh no.
Actually, I think I might be become one of you also. But anyway, no. Is this the way that the international elite racing is going to go, to gamified elements? That's a really great question.
Yeah, so Chris, can you give us, because I mean, I guess I wanted Chris on the show because Chris has the ability and the connections to have the conversations that I want to have. So I end up reading Chris's articles to get a sense of these conversations. So we had Benji on the show a little while ago, and in the chat, Chris came in and said, oh, I'm actually interviewing the head of Belgium cycling and USA cycling and Australian, a whole lot of them, about sort of the future of esport. And I think all we've been talking about with the Indivelo release, Zwift, the release of the game controller, all of this kind of ties into this really great discussion. I want to say that you had a great discussion with Cy Bradley on your podcast that I listened to yesterday. It was awesome. So go take a listen to that, people, as well, because this conversation will sort of lean into that as well. Is, Chris, the health of esport and all of these things that are happening, for me, seems like it's very healthy. But then I look at the juxtaposition of the interview you had with the head of USA cycling, where they said, we're kinda into esport. And that raised a little bit of a red flag. The fact that the IOC has got no mention of esport for the 2028 LA Games, there's no mention of that coming in as an exhibition sport. So how do you see those two factors, like this awesome development, but then maybe not the adoption we're looking for?
Chris,
I lost you there for a second. Yeah, no, I'm back. Geez, that's a really that's a lot of questions all in one. So I'll try to unpack them. Yeah. So the way that whole the genesis of me interviewing all the different heads of the national governing bodies was when USA Cycling released that press release and listing all the national team members. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'll be able to go on and check out, Zach Neer will be there. Jay Bruin will be there. I'll be able to see their names. So, they'll get the recognition that they deserve. Because I know that they're real athletes. I've ridden against them in real life. These guys are, they're elite athletes. Right. And they weren't there. And then there was a little bit of comments about it on social media. So like, what am I missing? They competed in the World Championship. How come they wore stars and stripes? How come they're not on this list? So I reached out to USA Cycling, and of course, I didn't get a response right away. So I'm like, well, what can I do to make this an interesting piece? What can I do to kind of answer some of my own questions? So I reached out to a number of the governing bodies. So I heard from Cycling Australia, I heard from Cycling Canada, I heard from South Africa, I heard from Belgium. And I must say that the reception from all of them was really quite positive. Canada, they said we're all in on esports. In fact, all the World Championship athletes are all national team members. Same thing with Australia, and they spoke about Jay Vine. Same thing with South Africa. They spoke about Ashley Moolman-Passio. we're all in whatever we can do to get more people in our country on bikes, and we recognize that esports is a sport that's here to stay, and we're going to embrace it, and we're behind it 100%. So I actually spoke to the head of Cycling Belgium. We had a really nice conversation on the phone, and I thought, I thought that he'd be the last person that would speak with me. Considering the fact that Belgian cycling is so steeped in tradition, I thought that he would just laugh me out of the room, and it wasn't the case at all. It wasn't as receptive as the other three that I discussed. And he said, we're a small country and we take our cycling very seriously. It's in the tradition of it, but we're not closed-minded to the fact that this is here and it's a real sport, and we're 100% going to get behind it when we can. But he also went on to say that there's one huge challenge to us getting behind it here, and that's the fact that it's not a medal sport in the Olympics. He said that if it becomes a medal sport in the Olympics, then that'll be a game changer for us. We will then be able to put funding behind it. We'll then be able to bring those athletes onto our national team. It will change the whole landscape for us. And that's basically what what Jim Miller at USA Cycling said as well. Like, I know that I put in that quote in the end of the article that said that we're kind of committed. The whole entire interview was very positive until the very end when he threw that in. He said, "Oh, but," I said, "But you've been telling me this whole interview that you're behind this, but now it's kinda." He said, "Yeah, I think that's the best word to use, kinda." So but if you read the article, they've made a number of really significant changes in their philosophy over the very short term. One being that they've created an esports committee, and they've appointed 2 members of our community to the committee to oversee, to kind of get the ball rolling there and to oversee the policies. Those people are not going to be picking athletes, but they're going to be making sure that the policies that are in place are being followed, basically, from an esports point of view. And they're going to be appointing a head of that esports commission, that esports committee within USAC. That's going to be then like pushing policy and procedure. But he didn't commit to the fact that there would be a national team for 24, because then this is the distinction that I learned after interviewing him. There's a difference between athletes that compete in the world championships and athletes that are on the national team. In order to be on the national team, you have to fulfill a number of inclusion criteria. Now, it's impossible for esports athletes to fulfill that criteria because there isn't criteria. So that's part of one of the things that they have to get on the agenda and do, is create that criteria.
Which usually is, and that's, so you're running into something there, so I can bring us in a little bit from somebody who's interacted with racing in World Cups and the interaction between national federations and the world body. Is there's a distinction, right? Like, I'm currently thinking about racing World Cups on U.S. soil at the end of this year, and I can be on the national team, or I can earn my way, right? And individually with UCI points and get picked up by either a trade team or race or just have the right myself to go as an individual, as an independent that has sponsors or whatever. It doesn't matter. So you have the UCI points, you submit another process versus being on the national team. There's 2 different ways to get to the world level and to be allowed to race at the world level. And what you're bringing in here, Chris, is, okay, USA Cycling's going, hey, UCI, what's the deal? Like, what do we make up? Do we just go make something up? Because all of that comes from the UCI. Like, everything that comes as far as, I have to go get UCI points. There's certain events that are out there in the world that are very specific for what I'm chasing. And then it's on the individual to go and figure out how the heck they're going to get to all those different events. And so, I think there's a good argument in some ways from USA Cycling where they're like, okay, like, there's a couple things going on here. And there's another thing you talked about, and I don't want to change topics right away, but there's the whole idea of, like being dependent on their goals as an organization. Like these organizations you talk to, their interests is in, it seems like, is really dependent on Olympic Games. Their interests are like there's a world body to them that in their minds that is Olympic oriented. Like that's the end game in some sort of way. And so that brings up another discussion we talked about, like, does the Olympics make up whether or not we define things as sport or not and all that kind of stuff. And that's a whole nother thing. But I get what he's saying about, like, yeah, we're on board. Just like, where's the structure? And like, can we trust? Because maybe they felt burnt in the past. And like in the USA, you know, the amount of UCI events here and the amount of organization that's going on around those UCI events, it's growing again. And I can see it. I can picture, like, wow, I can see these pathways that are opening up for athletes, and athletes might start feeling more empowered to go to a world stage. But that hasn't really existed here in the US for a really long time in a lot of ways. And it's only kind of been on the road. And we've kind of felt like this, like, stepchild in some ways. It's like, what the heck? Like, are we not really a part of this over here? And so you might be feeling that a little bit in the conversation. I'm just wondering, like, can we trust that if we put the resources and we actually make these positions, that we're not just like giving somebody a job that it's gone in the year or something like that, you know?
I kind of got the sense that all the organizations, the UCI, USAC, are all waiting to see what the IOC is going to do. The same thing with the World Championship tender process. I think that they're waiting to see what platform, you know, if we're going to have medal status, and if we are, then whatever platform is going to be hosting that, then, you know, there's a trickle down effect, and that platform is then going to be able to host.
Oh, you have so many,
they'll,
like,
they'll be able to.
Whys. My philosophy is like, the shoulds and the whys of sport are like stat. Like, is that really? Okay, but go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, I really got the sense that the IOC holds all the cards here. I really do.
And I will just segue here to say the sports at the LA 2028 games are the new ones coming in: motorsport, cricket, karate, baseball, softball, lacrosse, breaking, I don't know what that is, kickboxing, squash, and flag football. So there is no esport there. So guys, it's not going to happen by 2028. So that's, I don't know if that's like a
wait. Are you sure? You think you just made a claim? It's not going because of this article. Well, this is inside the games.biz article. So I don't know if they're an official. Is this official?
It may not be. Okay, it may not be official. Maybe Zwift or esport will find its way in there.
Okay, because if you go to the Olympic website, though, for esports, their thing is, I don't know, what are their, like, are they making any hard claims? So I would say,
I'll make my thoughts here is that from what this is saying, I think there are 9 sports that are going forward to the 2028 LA Games. I don't think esport is there. I think it looks to me like the IOC is putting the sport of cycling, this e-cycling, into this kind of offshoot, which is their esport games. I kind of think it looks as though the IOC is kind of putting those to the side a little bit and having them there, this event that we're having in Singapore coming up, that it's not like sitting there front and center at the Olympics. It looks to me like they're creating 2 sort of separate areas. But I could be wrong. And at 2 spaces. And I think at one point, they might come together. Maybe they're using that as a little test area. The question I have for you, Chris, is, so to be recognized by the IOC, a sport must first of all be governed by an international federation. My question to you, is the UCI the right international federation to be governing esport cycling? Or if we look at what's happened recently with game controllers and this gamification part of Zwift and that direction they seem to be going in a little bit, is it not better that their international federation governing this is more of a gaming federation?
You don't want to go, okay.
Wait, let Chris answer that. Let Chris answer that.
Yeah, I'm going to comment on that.
Yeah.
Go, Chris. What do you think, Chris?
Well, I think that you're making some assumptions that I don't think any of us have the answers to, because I think there are people in the esports space that are in direct contact with the UCI that have a lot of experience in running esports and in the performance verification that have a direct line and have been in constant contact with the UCI about this exact question. So I think that it's the partnership of those people may create the entity that has the credibility to do this. I do think that.
Interesting.
I'm trying to say it without actually saying who those people are, because I really can't. But you get what I'm saying. The way that I see that this is going to happen is that there's going to be a third party, like WADA, like say DADA, for instance, the Digital Anti-Doping Association, that's going to be objective, that is able to govern these events. Because when you really think about it, and we've brought up George Gilbert's name a few times here, but one of the phrases that he's used several occasions when I've interviewed him is that you shouldn't be able to correct your own homework. When you have a performance verification body like ZADA with Zwift in the name, it kind of, it denotes a conflict of interest. How can they be governing their own athletes on their own platform? It really should be a third party that does this. And I think that's ZADA, where we're headed.
Yeah, but DADA, say digital, that's not an international federation. That's a verification. That's not like WADA, the anti-doping thing is not UCI. Like the two are different. There's one that is growing the sport and is the governing body for all of the national federations. Like you wouldn't see, like, I guess the question I had more was like, is Zwift or esport, is it sitting under UCI or is it sitting under gaming? Like which way are we going here? And I think that can help frame this Olympic discussion, because is it coming into the Olympics under the flagship of cycling? So it's like BMX, track, road cycling, esport. Or is it coming in, because at the moment the IOC has put it into definitely this gaming area. It's at a Singapore event in a gaming space. So then the International Federation under that scenario needs to be like a gaming federation, right? I mean, or am I looking at this wrong?
So, I mean, that's
Nathan.
So, well, here's the thing is like in that space, it's still figuring itself out a lot. And I think that like even within the gaming space, well, who are we talking about then? If you go to Liquipedia and try and figure out who, like I'll be honest, like I'm spitballing a little bit here. Like I know a lot about the broadcast ownership and like the people who are putting on the media side of the events and the commentators in those spaces and the games in those spaces, who the governing bodies are to make sure that these things are happening. It feels to me kind of like what's happening in this space as well, where like Dream League or ESL or whoever those private entities for media production, broadcast production, and putting on an event production, they're just making agreements with the platforms from what I can see. Now there is the IESF, International Esports Federation, like I don't know how involved they are in those kinds of things. And like, I think the like, okay, just an example in the Dota space, I'm not positive about this, so don't quote me on this. I'm guessing here, but the Dota Pro Circuit, DPC, is agreed upon with all of the event organizers, Dota, Steam, and the teams. As far as I don't know if there's actually a third party outside of that governing that. And so I think this is still figuring. It's like, is there someone to turn to, like even in the esports space that you're bringing up here, Anna? I'm not sure that there is someone to turn to at this point.
The reason I kind of bring this up is I'll give you an example. So here in New Zealand, Cycling New Zealand has almost nothing to do with Zwift or esport. However, recently, the New Zealand Esport Federation, which looks at, I don't know, I'm not a gamer, but Fortnite games, stuff like that, has just become affiliated to our national sport governing body in both the high performance space and the community sports space. And I met with the head of it, and he was over in Paris recently talking with the IOC specifically around virtual cycling. So that, for me, here in our country at least, has completely split now, where the Cycling Federation is not the people you are talking to about it. You are talking to the Gaming Federation.
That's really
so I guess I'm coming from that context here. And then you look
that
at
makes
the
sense. Like there's a competition for it then. Like there's a competition for where the relationships then even are going to form and who actually has interest. And maybe in New Zealand, that's who actually has the interest, which would be interesting, whatever, which will be like, in New Zealand, the body that creates the support for it is the gaming space. And then what's really crazy is like, what if New Zealand's really successful in all of that because it doesn't have all of those
traditional cycling spaces.
Ties to traditional cycling in certain ways or whatever? Or does it fail and the traditional cycling spaces do well? Or is there certain countries that are able to figure that out because their traditional cyclists are also gamers or something? I don't know. Like, that's really interesting. Does that end up being not a question of what's the overall governing body? Because right now it feels like the UCI really is the guiding force connection to the Olympics. It doesn't just feel that way. That's who's talking to the IOC right now, is the UCI. Now, who the UCI and the IOC are talking to nationally, I know we're deep in the weeds right now, is a whole nother question, though.
Yeah. And I mean, Chris, it came down to your article. I was like, I would love a follow-up article from you kind of to juxtaposition. And could you talk to national heads of gaming organizations, like people who are at Singapore, I guess? And I get like, and see, you have the USA side, which was like, we're kind of into this. And then you might talk to a gaming USA person. They're like, we would love this. This is amazing. It would be nice. Or maybe they're like, oh, terrible. I don't see this at all fitting into our gaming environment. But I would love to see that, Chris. I mean, do you think that we're a little bit too rigid? And again, it comes up with the Zwift game controller and doing the game last night. It came to me again, like, are we all too rigidly sitting here thinking of this as cycling, Chris?
Yeah, I would hope not, because the greatest criticism I receive on any of the things that I put out there is from traditional cyclists. They're always bashing esports and virtual cycling. So I hope that we're not relying on those people. But that's a really great question. It's a really great topic. One thing that I will tell you, in the research that I did for one of those articles, I read an interview with the head of the IOC, and he basically made it clear that they give more emphasis to online sports that were simulations of real sports, where there's actual physical effort being like rowing and cycling and archery, that type of thing, where there's actual physical activity that's linked to the digital activity. Like, I don't like, there was kind of like in contrast to like Fortnite or something like that really doesn't require physical activity, in the formal sense. I know it requires a lot of endurance, and my son is heavy into it, and I know that he watches a lot of streamers, and those guys are they're watching their nutrition and they're recovering, and it takes a lot of effort, and it's a lot of stress on their bodies. I know it is. I'm not trying to minimize that at all, but in the formal sense that something like the IOC could wrap around, like showing people these are athletes that are doing athletic things. It's just being portrayed onto a digital screen.
When I want to piggyback on the idea of opportunity with more people involved, sometimes because of this us and them thing, and well, is it this or is it that, and the defining of what it is, getting that strong definition, where like this is like still a creative space, and getting Rockstar involved, getting things, just an example, getting Xbox involved, getting people from another sector of the global community interested, like, yeah, we're really interested in that, and we want to throw resources at that, and we want to get more people involved in that. Like, if we think about, if we get rid of like the dollar signs behind that and like the sponsorship of it and all that kind of like who's gonna get involved and it's just about money, but like that money and like or involvement, whatever you want to call that involvement or production or getting in the space is just an interest of people. Like that's what it represents. Mm-hmm. There's more people getting interested in this space to do stuff in it. And like that's awesome. But like, and so what it comes down to is like people's, like you said, Chris, their trepidation toward, is it going to change the thing I like? I think that's what you're picking up. Like we're picking up on is like, there's this traditional cyclist that's like, and maybe a community voice that comes out. Sometimes it's like, that's not my thing. And it's like, but it's a little bit of friction with this changing landscape. But it's like, dude, you were riding your bike, looking at a garage wall for a really, really long time. And now you're literally playing a game and like you've slowly gotten this introduction and sucked into it. And if you're a Zwifter now, whether you like it or not, you're playing a video game and you're kind of trying to be in a space of denial. You know what I mean? Like, and I think so. Anyways, the reason I'm saying that is not to start a fight. It's to say like, hey, maybe be more open, because one of the struggles of cycling is its growth, and getting more people involved in this space is only going to help actually for the space to grow. And it's not going to change what cycling is that you've always known. That'll be what it is. And just because new people are defining it and expressing it in this other way, what's the problem? Let them do that. Cool. And so, yeah, getting more people, anyways, but getting more people involved, like, let's go looking. And I've heard this from the UCI, like, well, maybe other entities getting involved in this space is a good thing, because we need more interested parties to justify what the heck we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think
you guys are like, Nathan's
no.
Over.
I'm like, I'm leaving the space for Chris to jump in. But I think the last week has been super interesting for me to have these kind of like thought processes going on, is because I race on Indivelo, and I know from their website it's, what if esport cycling was an Olympic sport, right? So you can see they want it to be at the Olympics. We know Eric Min in a recent podcast has said he wants it to be at the Olympics. Now, I think it does come back, Nathan, to that sort of the shoulds of what we're doing here. And I think what I wouldn't want to see is that the driving force of getting to the Olympics starts to change the ways esports cycling works for what the community wants. So I guess as well, like it's got to be kind of careful here that this drive for a lot of entities out there. I know My Whoosh probably as well. I don't know what about RGT, and then you've got Indivelo. And if it becomes less about the customer and more about what the IOC wants, we could get into a dangerous space, I would say.
100%. Yeah.
I think that the distinction there is creating a new sport or creating a virtual cycling entity that people are going to consume as consumers. Yeah, I think it's two totally different things, right?
So can we
Indivelo?
Go ahead. Sorry,
Chris.
Chris. Yeah, sorry, Chris.
I think that Indivelo is very much committed to creating a new sport, defining a new sport. That's their motivation, and that's where the majority of their resources are placed. Zwift, I don't think is even with the recent hardware release, I think it's pretty clear that that's not their first priority.
It depends though, because then it comes to the question of like, it could actually be a driving priority depending on what the IOC wants. So if the IOC has said, I'm not privy to these discussions, but if the IOC has said, we want it to look and feel like cycling and to have it as a cycling discipline, then yes, I get what Indivelo's doing. If they've said, we want it to look gamified and we want this to show people physically riding but having a really obviously gamed experience, then you can see why Zwift's doing what it's doing. So we don't know kind of what, and that's, I guess, where I'm saying this point of like, is it cycling or is it gaming? You know, like at the moment, the relationship Zwift has with IOC, from what I can see, is they're at the esport finals. This isn't like, they're not at a sport exhibition thing with some traditional sports. They're literally alongside like Fortnite. So maybe the IOC is asking for a more gamified experience, which would explain Zwift controllers. I don't know, but I think we kind of make these assumptions that it needs to look and feel like cycling. Maybe it doesn't.
I think, but there are a lot of it's not just Fortnite. There are a lot of other sports along the same lines as cycling. Like I mentioned earlier, isn't rowing one of them? I think archery is one of them. Aren't there? I don't have them in front of me right now, but
yeah, I guess it's
not all like
it's just yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of saying like we don't know. I don't know what the IOC is thinking. I mean, I don't know what kind of look and feel they want from this new space for them. So yeah, I guess that's where I've been sitting in this last week, is like, we've got one provider who's like doing one thing and another who's doing another. And this is why I love having different people in the market, because you can kind of like look at where priorities are going and how things are looking. And yeah, anyway, it's just a sort of feeling I had of like what the overarching feeling that came to my head was, are we moving into this being a bit further away from traditional cycling?
Yeah, and I don't know. I should ask you, do you want it to do that?
I mean, it's hard, right? Like I'm not a gamer and I'm not a traditional cyclist. So I kind of don't know. But I'll tell you that my kids loved the gamified side. So if we're looking at Olympics 2028, 2032, 2036, whenever it's kind of ready, this new generation may make the decision for us, right? Like we may evolve through this and it may come out with something completely different in like 6 to 8 years.
Yeah,
and I would consider that a tremendous success if our youth took up virtual cycling because of the gamified elements. Then I would consider that a huge win. I really would.
On what the IOC are asking for, that whole idea of the direction from the top down, like there is a danger there that you end up with no one interested because you have a bunch of people trying to ask for something to fit a mold it's either this or it's either that. Again, whereas the defining factor, in my opinion, around the sport should be people participating in something that they enjoy for competition, and then we find the best competitions and the best people in those competitions. So is it the chicken or the egg kind of a thing going on here? But the best way to do that is like, let's go incubate a bunch of stuff and keep incubating. And like, this is where some things start to come up, is like, what is actually in the game? What is actually being developed in order for these competitions to happen? Right. And so that's a really interesting and tough topic, because you talked about like maybe esports isn't the focus or whatever you were saying earlier, where which direction are things going and where is the focus going to be? I mean, like the other day I saw a points competition taking place in Indivelo. And it was in the game, and right now, like a points competition is tallied up some other way outside of the game in Zwift, right? Like, so, okay, where are these things going to land? You know what I mean? What's actually being developed in the game, and where can the resource, but at the same time, that's a hard topic, because it's like, okay, we need to create this thing that's for the top end of esports, but where's we need to do things where people are participating, right? Chicken or the egg. Like we need a massive participation so that we have this worldwide sport. You asked some questions. You asked a lot of questions here that I'm wondering about here. This is just a video that's on the 10 competitions. This is on the esports page. The Olympic Esports Series finals right here. 10 competitions. You can see, this gives you a good idea of like what we're going to be looking at just in images. Fortnite was in there. You have people playing. It's obviously esports images there. We saw some Zwift in there for a second. We see some Rocket League. We see Arena Games in there. So they're definitely alongside of, like you said, a whole lot of competitions that are both a mixture of both. It feels to me like they're kind of throwing them all in there and seeing what lands. That's what it looks like to me.
I honestly think this is the sandpit for the IOC. I think this is a new area. We don't want to be too risky, and let's have a sandpit where we can have this sort of support thrown at these esport groups. And which do people like more? I mean, they will be gathering up like what got views, what didn't, and I think then using that to help decide. Like, I think it's a great idea from them is to have this as an area where they can test and trial things without really like impacting their brand, I guess.
That was really perceptive too, what you said earlier, Anna, I think, where you said it's also kind of like separated so they could like join them up at one point, or if it's successful on its own, but the joining up doesn't seem to take really well, then they just like, well, we'll just have its own thing over here. And that's still, it's still a successful endeavor, but it didn't join up. Chris, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that I have some research and some people to call to write Anna's article for her.
Sorry, Chris.
I don't even know. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start. It's a great question, and I know that the last time I was on the podcast, you asked me why I do this stuff, and it's only because I just want to learn. Answering these questions is a huge challenge, and it's a lot of fun to do it. But yeah, it's a really great question, and it also, like, you would have to think that this Olympic Esports Series is a tremendous opportunity to showcase virtual cycling. Right? It's going to be, it may be the first time that the majority of the world ever sees this, and it's it's like you would alluded to what I had said during my podcast, and that I think that we're kind of at a crossroads in a lot of different ways with virtual cycling right now. The whole Olympics thing could be a make or break for it as a credible credible sport going forward. If it gets that momentum, then it could really take off, and if it doesn't, it's just going to continue to be a challenge. But yeah, these are all like incredible questions. They really are.
You end up with a lot of hungry sharks then too. That's the analogy that came into my mind. Like, then all of a sudden it's like all the interests start coming in. When things go, like when you get that status, like you said, maybe that's a good kickstart too for a lot of stuff like to happen. Yeah. I mean, who knows what might get involved.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, like, I've never been so excited about this space than how I feel right now. I mean, maybe when I first ever went on Zwift, I was like, oh my God, and I did a race. I mean, I was pretty excited then, but I'm really excited now. Like, I think there's just endless possibilities, a bit of competition out there, really new, cool stuff happening in a whole bunch of different spaces. And I just, I don't know how you feel, Chris, if we want to sum up this conversation. Like, you're there behind the scenes talking to all these people, and what's your vibe of this space at the moment?
I think there's a lot of excitement. I really do. I think that of all the governing bodies were tremendously receptive. There are a lot of exciting things going on behind the scenes with the IOC and in the UCI, and I know those conversations are being had with between people that are working on a different plane or way above my pay grade. So I think that there are minds that are working on solving this problem. I really do. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, and one of the things that is great about virtual cycling and Zwift in particular for me, is the community, right? I was on a CompuTrainer and I moved over to Zwift, and the only reason why I'm still there is because of the community. It's an incredibly nurturing space. And I know that you had mentioned it a couple of your podcasts ago about the ways that Zwift is actually making huge differences in that community. And one of the ways is that the organization that I created, the Dirt Dad Fund, a nonprofit to support members of the virtual cycling community, received a micro grant from Zwift, which I'm extremely sincerely grateful for that. And it's they're giving back to the community, and then I guess it is a business, but it's also cycling is a way to improve your well-being, to improve your mental health, your wellness. And you're making friends, and you also can make a difference. And the micro grant awarded the Dirt Dad Fund $5,000 and 20 Zwift subscriptions, and I was able to leverage those subscriptions into a fundraiser, and we raised $6,000 in less than 24 hours to buy an adaptive cycle for one of our members. So, their little daughter has a extremely rare disease, and she's non-ambulatory. She can't walk, and they needed this bike for her because they think that the bike is going to be the game changer for her. That if she's able to use this bike, that eventually she's going to be able to walk and interact in her environment. And because of Zwift, and because of the community, and because of the Dirt Dad Fund, we were able to do this for her. And I'm extremely proud of that work, and I'm really extremely proud of the community for being able to kind of be the go-between for that generosity, and for Zwift making that particular thing possible.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing as far as community goes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the other side of community too, we were talking about this Olympic esports event. We got really into the high level and into the weeds of all the ins and outs and all of that, but there's an event coming up, and Olympic Esports Series 2023. Here's the courses, the races. You want to check them out? Check it out. Talking about community. Here's the finalists. So a lot of familiar names, as you can see here, across men and women. There's parity across it, and they're actually going to be mixed gender too. So the teams are pretty cool the way that that's going to be happening, and it looks like they're going to be chasing after points across the team, and they can choose. It looks like each one of the athletes are going to be doing 2 of the 3 events, and they can choose their best athletes for like the climb, the sprint, and it looks like what's the other one? The elimination race. Pretty cool the way that they've thrown that together as well, as far as the format goes. And that we're able to see some of these esports athletes at an Olympic event now that are very familiar names within our community.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. The teams look great, and a lot of the names are really they're well known, charismatic figures in the community. And I think that those selections were made for that specific reason. These people that have an identity. I've always said that that virtual cycling has an identity crisis, because it's an avatar. You don't really get that connection, and I think that this is a huge step in the right direction, because you have these personalities, and if we're able to kind of make that connection, it's kind of like when I do those, I do the podcast where I interview the athletes to get to know them better. That's out there. I do those interviews that I publish, and I try to ask questions about, more about what the athletes are as people, not just their cycling ability, because I think that's what's, that's where you really make the connection.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to watch what happens. I'm kind of excited to record this episode for posterity and listen to it in a year or 2 years time and be like, wow, like I was totally like off on that, or like, oh, okay, that kind of like came out. So yeah, thanks, Chris. Like your podcast yesterday I listened to, I encourage everyone to go listen to that as well. And it's the Zcommunique, thezcommunique.com, not just Zcommunique.com. I had that wrong, Chris, sorry. So thezcommunique.com. And thought-provoking. So come in to chat or message us or come in anywhere and give some thoughts, because I just think this is a a topic that I could talk about for hours and hours and hours. I don't know what that says about me.
Like, yeah, right. What does it say about
us? We went down a couple different rabbit holes there, but I really appreciate it because it's these are all really great questions, and I love to think about it. I love to explore topics that I'm passionate about. That's what it's all about.
Go check out Chris.
And I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah,
really honored.
Of course, Chris. Of course. Yeah, go check out Chris at the Zcommunique. Look forward to the articles that come out of this conversation. This just seems like a lot of questions to go be answered. But as Anna said, I look forward to also seeing where everything goes and how this ends up playing in a couple of years. But thanks a lot, Chris. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Well, always great to talk to Chris and get his insight, and feels like we sparked off more than we answered for sure. And I have a feeling a lot of interviews and more articles are going to be coming out of that. And that's what I like about Chris is he digs and he gets in front of and talks to the right people in order to get the information out there, which I really, really, really appreciate about him.
Yeah, no, he goes deep, which I like. And he, if you haven't read it, go read that National Federation article. It was interesting. I said to Chris after, and I touched on it there, that 99% of it was like the federations being like, yeah, it's great, we're supportive. And then that last bit with the USA one being like, yeah, we're kind of into esport. And I was like, that kind of, I feel like all the other stuff they're saying was a little bit of like lip service, like, yeah, we're there, we're behind it, we're good. Well, actually, we're kind of into it. It's like, oh no.
Well, there is, I mean, I think there's trepidation all around, like in some ways, because of there's suddenly interest, like you said, with the status. But if it's not, then it's like, okay, well, rebuild mode, grassroots, like resource or not, So
yeah, I mean, I'll just add one thing in here too. Before we go, we probably need to close it out. But is I see a little bit of a link here with. I remember over the winter, cyclocross did an event that was in the snow. I think in France somewhere. So they did an event that was purely in the snow. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And not many of the riders really enjoyed it because obviously it was really slippery. And there was a bit of, I'm not a cyclocross rider, so I don't know the history, but there was quite a bit of backlash of like, why are you doing this? Like, this is.
I know some of the riders personally who were not happy one bit. Like that Monday, there was actually conversations with me that were like, what the heck?
And what the heck is the whole reason they did it is they want cyclocross at the Winter Olympics. So they did it in the snow. They did it in the snow to showcase the fact it could be a Winter Olympics.
For real?
Sport.
That's actually why. You got real quotes saying that was why.
I don't know. I was on the commentary of when they were commentating. Like they're doing this because they want it to be at the Winter Olympics to showcase. Yeah. So I could probably have that wrong, but it was in the commentary. But that kind of sparked my thing of just what I brought up there was like, we just have to be a little bit careful. We've got two platforms who are both clearly wanting to get to the Olympics. And I just hope we don't forget customer experience along the way. Yeah. Because in cyclocross,
what is sport? What is sport? Like sport isn't whether or not some entity says there's a sport. Like that's not what sport is. That at all. Like you can write something de jure all you want. What's the de facto? Like in law, it's like what's actually happening, and then you try and discover what's actually happening and write it down in law. But like if it's not actually happening, it's like, well, you go talk all you want. Talk is cheap, dude. It don't matter,
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, shall we close that off? I feel like this will be a topic we'll bring up another time.
Maybe
I think
after. This is like the topic we bring up all the time. Okay.
I know.
All right, let's move on to our speaking of esports, we're going into our garage and jersey pick of the week, fashion show time. And this is an interesting one because it's next esport presented by Insured. Jeez, this is the esport episode. Who's that guy?
I know. You tell me.
Who is? Okay.
I got sent it. I do in chat. Oh, I got sent his. I thought you would for sure know that, Nathan.
I recognize the. I do recognize the face, but I'm like blanking right now. 100% blanking.
I got sent it on an Instagram message a long time ago. Scott, that's it. Yes,
there we
Scott
go.
Cantanazaro. Scott Cantanazaro.
Scott Cantanazaro. Good job. Good job. Thank you.
There we go. That was from Chris, who came into chat. So the reason I had this is I've been sent some pictures by Next. It was that kind of like a Zwifters in the wild thing. And I love the fact that people are making their in-game esport kit in real life, so you can go wear it on the real roads as well. So this was my little homage to Next, who has produced in real life cycling kits. And not just that, they produced the national kits for those who represented their country. So this is Scott Cantanazaro in his USA Next kit, which I just think is really cool. Like, I just like this, that they're doing a bit of in real life swag.
Heck yeah. And that you see that more and more, that it used to be that all the in real life kits were trying to get into Zwift. Well, a lot of the Zwift kits that were developed just for Zwift are starting to become in real life ones. Perfect example also the Zwift Insider, the esports teams, etc. Now, the garage pick of the week, Elite Sturzo, you sent me this that before the play's released, which is really funny that it's ironic that you said and you still have a Sturzo and are using a Sturzo.
Yeah, well, I don't want to. I just because I don't have the game controller yet. But this had literally been sitting in my cupboard gathering cobwebs, probably similar to my direct connect for the trainer, until Barnes came in and was like, "Oh my gosh, brush off the cobwebs and set that up." So this was similar. Last night or the other night, I went out, got it out of the cupboard, gave it a little bit of a vacuum, put some new batteries in, and is now set up on my bike. So this will be on my bike until my controller arrives. But it's a bit of a rest in peace for the Elite Sturzo, which I think...
Oh, shots fired. Shots fired.
Oh, why would I use this if I have a game controller?
There's people in comments I have saw in the last 24 hours saying that anti-controller, they want to use their Sturzo because it's a more real experience. So there are people who really still want that.
Yeah. Okay, well they can let me know. I'll send you mine. I'll send you my one. Because
oh my gosh, Anna, that's the controller versus mouse and keyboard thing so coming out to me right now, and that the people who are still using controllers in video games that are PC, they have to get something called aim assist, and I'm like, just freaking get rid of the controller and get off of the thing. Come on.
But they're kind of the reason, if I have a game controller, I don't want I don't want an in real life feel in Zwift. I am well aware my bike is on a trainer statically sitting there. This is not an in real life experience.
That's what this person was looking for. They were looking for, they were looking for a more real life experience actually. And they were asking, I'm seeing in chat, Beer Bear saying right now over at the Twitch chat, saying that what if you could do both? What if you could also have the steering but also continue to use the controller at the same time, or do you have to have one or the other? Good point. If somebody wants to do that, if we're talking about what the users want, is that actually something?
I doubt it, because they're not, you can't, in the way Zwift set up at the pairing screen.
No, you can't.
Pairs.
Yeah.
No, you can't. And I don't know. My personal experience, my personal preference, I want a game feeling. I'm using the Sturzo currently at the moment because that's all I have. But as soon as that controller arrives, this is getting posted to someone who wants it. So PM me, let me know if you want a free Sturzo.
Yeah, a free one. She's giving it away. Oh my gosh. Wow. Whoa. I'm with you on that too. I think that there are some people who still want that experience of being able to turn and get the bike feeling experience, so anyways, we go down a big rabbit hole there that's already opened up in my brain. I'm going to leave that alone because we are hour and 40 minutes into this episode. Ooh. This is a pretty long episode, so appreciate everybody hanging out and listening to us. This has been episode what are we up to for this week? Before I do the outro, I'm racing this weekend in La Crosse, Wisconsin. There's a big trails fest called the Aura Fest. 2 days of racing, 3 different races. There is an enduro, there's a short track, and a cross country. You can just go spend 2 days. We're actually leaving tomorrow, so that's what's happening.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. What are you up to?
I'm traveling down south to go and do a little bit of trail running with a friend before she moves overseas. A night away from the kids, going to go get a pedicure, go out for dinner, have a bit of an easy brunch, bit of a relaxing weekend coming up.
think, yeah, sounds good. Sounds awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. You can find this podcast over at zwiftcommuniquelive.com. And you can also obviously watch it all the places that we have been live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff on all those places. You can find us on socials as well, Zwift Community Live and The Wrap. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you next week for episode number 49. And as always, everybody, ride on.